Imagine a landmass so massive, it spans an entire continent. A country almost the exact same size as the United States. Now picture that same country, but completely wiped clean. No skyscrapers, no roads, no electricity, just an endless, brutal expanse of scorching red sand, barren rocks, and a silence so loud it can drive a person insane. This isn't a post-apocalyptic movie scene. This is a real place on Earth. Welcome to Australia. When most people think of Australia, they picture the gleaming white sails of the Sydney Opera House, the crowded beaches of Melbourne, or surfers catching waves under a perfect blue sky. But that vibrant, postcard-perfect Australia is nothing but a tiny illusion. It is a fragile ribbon of green hugging the very edge of the continent. Step just a few miles inland and the illusion shatters. A staggering 90% of Australia's population lives on less than 10% of its land. The remaining 90% of the country is completely, terrifyingly empty. It is a vast, unforgiving wasteland known simply as the Outback, an area larger than the entire European Union, yet home to fewer people than a small neighborhood in New York. Why? How can a modern, wealthy superpower be so incapable of conquering its own backyard? What dark secrets is this continent hiding? And what happens to the rare, desperate souls who dare to step into the dead heart of Australia? The truth isn't just about bad weather or bad luck. It is a story of a geographical trap, prehistoric forces, and a brutal ecosystem designed to keep humans out. To truly understand the mystery of the empty continent, we have to look at the world map. On paper, Australia looks like paradise. It is surrounded by oceans, blessed with thousands of miles of coastline, and possesses limitless space. In America, as the population grew, millions of people packed their bags and moved west, building massive cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Denver right in the middle of deserts and mountains. Humans adapted. We built highways, laid water pipes, and tamed the wild. Naturally, you would expect Australia to do the same, but Australia defied every rule of human civilization. If you were to take a helicopter ride from the eastern coast of Sydney and fly directly toward the west, the transformation of the landscape below you would happen with shocking speed. Within just 30 minutes, the lush green forests vanish. The sprawling suburban houses disappear. The blue rivers dry up into chalky white scars on the earth. Suddenly, everything turns a deep, rust red color. For the next 5 hours of your flight, you will see absolutely nothing but this red dirt. No trees, no cars, no signs of human life. It is as if you have left Earth and landed on the surface of Mars. This is the great geographical curse of Australia. It is a giant hollow shell, a country with a beautiful living rim, but a dead, hollow center. But to understand why this center died, we have to look at a massive geological wall that sits on the east coast, a wall that sealed the fate of an entire continent millions of years ago. Run your fingers along the eastern coast of an Australian map, and you will find a massive mountain range called the Great Dividing Range. It is the fifth longest mountain chain in the entire world, stretching for over 2,300 miles. To the untrained eye, these mountains look beautiful. But to an environmental scientist, they are a monument of doom for the interior of the country. The weather patterns of the southern hemisphere work in a very specific way. Powerful, moisture-heavy winds blow from the Pacific Ocean, heading straight toward the Australian continent. These winds carry billions of gallons of evaporated water, the lifeblood required to create rivers, lakes, and fertile soil. But as these wet winds slam into the east coast, they hit the brick wall of the Great Dividing Range. The mountains force the air to rise rapidly. As the air rises, it cools, and all that beautiful, life-giving moisture is dumped directly onto the eastern coast in the form of heavy rain. This is why Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne are so incredibly green, wet, and prosperous. But by the time the wind finally manages to cross over the peaks of the mountains, it has been completely stripped of its water. It becomes a dry, hot, invisible ghost of wind. As it descends down the other side of the mountains and sweeps across the rest of the continent, it doesn't bring rain. Instead, it sucks up whatever tiny bit of moisture is left in the soil. This phenomenon is known as a rain shadow. And because Australia is so wide, this rain shadow covers almost the entire continent. The mountains greedily consume all the water, leaving the rest of the land to choke in eternal drought. But lack of rain is only half the problem. After all, Saudi Arabia and Egypt are covered in massive deserts, yet they have ancient histories of large populations and great civilizations. Why couldn't Australia do the same? The answer lies beneath the dirt. Australia has the most unique and the most tragic soil on Earth. Most continents we live on today, like North America, Europe and Asia, have undergone a massive geological reset within the last few 100,000 years. Huge glaciers and ice sheets ground down the Earth, while active volcanoes erupted, spewing fresh, mineral-rich ash across the plains. When these minerals mixed with water, they created incredibly fertile, nutrient-rich soil, capable of supporting massive forests and endless agriculture. Australia, however, missed out on all of it. Geologically, Australia is a dinosaur. It has been completely quiet for hundreds of millions of years. No glaciers crushed its rocks. No major volcanoes refreshed its soil. It is the flattest, oldest, most heavily weathered continent on the planet. Because the soil has been sitting there, exposed to the elements for eons, the intense heat and occasional torrential floods have completely washed away all the vital nutrients like phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium. The dirt in the outback is essentially dead. It is highly acidic, packed with useless iron oxides, which gives it that eerie red color, and completely incapable of growing crops on a massive scale. You cannot build a civilization if you cannot grow food. And you cannot grow food in dirt that has been dead since the time of the dinosaurs. Living in the outback isn't just difficult. It is an active struggle against a climate that wants to kill you. During the Australian summer, temperatures in the interior routinely skyrocket past 50 degrees Celsius. That is over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat is so intense that the ground behaves like a giant frying pan. Any water poured onto the earth evaporates before it can even sink into the soil. Ground temperatures can get hot enough to cook an egg instantly or melt the soles of cheap shoes. And then there are the droughts. In the outback, a drought doesn't mean a few weeks without rain. It means years. There are places in the interior that have gone nearly a decade without seeing a single drop of rain. The rivers here are illusions. They are dry, sandy ditches for 99% of the year, filling up only during freak, unpredictable flash floods that turn the desert into a temporary inland sea, before vanishing back into the blistering air just weeks later. If the climate doesn't break you, the isolation will, because the interior is so unlivable. There is virtually no infrastructure. If your car breaks down on an unpaved track in the middle of the outback, the nearest human being could be a 10-hour drive away. There is no cell phone service, no gas stations, no water wells. If you enter without satellite communication and extra fuel, a simple flat tire can easily become a death sentence within 48 hours due to severe dehydration. To survive in a place this hostile, the local wildlife had to evolve into some of the most aggressive, resilient creatures on Earth. The outback isn't empty of life. It is just empty of human life. It is home to the inland taipan, the most venomous snake in existence. Possesses venom so toxic a single bite can kill 100 grown men within 45 minutes. It is home to massive swarms of millions of bushflies that crawl into your eyes, nose and mouth, searching for moisture, driving animals and humans to the brink of madness. But the ultimate kings of the empty lands are the dingoes, wild, highly intelligent apex predators that hunt in packs across the desert. The dingoes became such a massive threat to the few brave farmers attempting to raise livestock on the edges of the desert that humanity had to build one of the most insane structures in history, the Dingo Fence. Stretching for an unbelievable 3,400 miles across the continent, this continuous wire mesh fence is longer than the distance from London to New York. It was built for one single purpose: to physically divide the continent in two, to keep the killer wild dogs of the empty red desert away from the fertile lands of the southeast. It is a literal border shift between the world of humans and the world of untamed survival. In May of 2023, the Australian government made a quiet announcement. For the first time, they had to officially retire the iconic pink 2000 rupee note across the ocean in India because big currency failed its purpose. But in Australia, they realized a much bigger truth. You cannot print enough money, build enough roads, or create enough technology to defeat nature when it decides a land belongs to the wild. Today, humanity has conquered the sky, explored the deep ocean, and sent rovers to distant planets. But the interior of Australia remains undefeated. It stands as a humbling, beautiful, and terrifying reminder that Earth does not belong to us. We simply live on the margins of what it allows us to occupy. The 90% of Australia that is empty will likely stay empty forever. A timeless, silent ocean of red sand, guarded by heat, ancient rocks, and a climate that refuses to be tamed. So the next time you look at a map of the world, don't just look at the borders drawn by lines of ink. Look closer. Look at the borders drawn by nature itself. Because sometimes the greatest mystery isn't what humans have built. It's the places we were forced to leave behind.